short press conference where we have asked you to come and at least take part in this launch of a process that we are now calling #disability Sledgehammer. Apart from it being trendy these days to talk about hashtags, it's also important for us to note that they are also serving an important purpose of transferring information or sending information from and hopefully we through this program want to send correct information about persons with disabilities. So we do have Abraham Mateta, who will walk us through the program itself, and we also have Mr. Dennis Mutsingo, and also Advent Shoko with us as persons with disabilities. We are not the only people within this. We are just representing a greater and wider group of people with disabilities who have the issues that Mateta and Mutsingo, who have the issues that these guys are going to share. My name is Masiba Kuchera, and without wasting any more of your time, let's go to Abraham, who will make a short presentation, and we will have questions from Mr. Mutsingo and myself if there are any, and then we will take questions from them.
Okay, a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before I address you, it's very important that I raise this hammer so that it is clear that we are now talking about a different way of handling disability. We come here basically to launch the movement that we call #disability Sledgehammer. And as we do that, my task is to put you into perspective on what are the real issues that have caused us to think in terms of this. So, first of all, noted with great concern that disability continues to be an issue that is sidelined, and persons with disabilities continue to be shut out of public and private spaces, especially spaces where decision making is done. We have also noted that persons with disabilities continue to knock gently at those closed doors, but there is no response. So this explains why we are now coming up with this hammer. So this hammer is symbolic of the methods that we will do to break into those closed doors. Now, I know that when we speak like that, some people may begin to think that we are thinking violently, but far from it. In fact, we have been subjected to more serious forms of violence through discrimination. But when we are talking about the sledgehammer, we actually know that sometimes as persons with disabilities, we have been defeated simply because when we are discriminated, it gives rise to serious emotions and anger. So this time we are no longer going to get angry. We are going to play the game at that intellectual level, where we are saying we want to use a multiplicity of methods to make sure that those closed doors are opened. So before I talk about the closed doors, let me actually talk about the Sledgehammer and what we intend to do. Basically, we intend to take disability away from the conference rooms, because you will find that when we talk about disability, you hear of it when people are in a hotel discussing disability issues somewhere, or when NGOs are thinking in terms of disability mainstreaming, and then they come up with very good proposals, and then it ends there. We are saying we want to take disability away from that and take it to the courts of law, take disability to parliament, take disability to the churches, take disability to the civic society, take disability, in short, to the Zimbabweans. So when we do that, it will help us, because for the past 36 years, unfortunately, during all those 36 years, including the time of the inclusive government, we have noted with concern that, disability issues are manned and managed by the gatekeepers of charity, and the government is taking a backbencher's role. So we seek to use the sledgehammer to change the state of affairs. You see, we have issues around the legislation and how badly it gets framed when it comes to disability. Just by way of an example, when you read Section 83 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, it is framed as rights of persons with disabilities, right? Yet when you read the contents of that section, it doesn't read like a section. It even becomes more apparent when you read sections around it. For example, Section 82 on the rights of elderly people, and Section 84 on the rights of veterans of the liberation struggle. When you read the Section 82, it says elderly persons, that is to say those who are above the age of blah, 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 have a right to. And when you read Section 84, it says it says liberation, veterans of the liberation struggle, and it describes who those are. And it says shall be entitled to. Yet when you read Section 83, it says the state and all its institutions shall, within the limit of resources available to it. And then it goes on to talk about what the state should do for persons with disabilities. So the main problem with that approach is that it leaves persons with disabilities as objects rather than citizens with rights and responsibilities. So we see that being evidence of entrenched attitudes and discriminatory practices against persons with disabilities. And it is those attitudes that the sledgehammer wishes to look at, wishes to, it's those attitudes that have closed the doors for persons with disabilities. I can also highlight that since 1992, Zimbabwe has had what is called the Disabled Persons Act. The Disabled Persons Act states in Section 3 that there shall be a Director of Disabled Persons Affairs whose office shall be a public office. Yet for the past 24 years, the government has been reading this section to mean that there shall never be a Director of Disabled Persons Affairs, because none has ever been appointed. So we are saying this is a closed door. We may have bad legislation, but what is even worse is lack of political will. So we are saying with that lack of political will, we cannot sit idle and just say maybe things will happen one day. We learned our lesson the harder way during the inclusive government when we got a constitution that almost reduced us into second-class citizens in the country that we call home. So we are saying we are no longer going to fold our hands and allow things of this nature to continue. Yes, the constitution is poorly written, but we are even saying even those few things that can be implementable should be implemented. Zimbabwe has ratified the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. This is a great compendium of disability rights, and it's a good standard for disability practice. Yet for the past 3 years after the ratification of the convention, there has been nothing in terms of implementation. We are seeing the government actually struggling to come up with a report in terms of the procedures. It was supposed to have submitted the report 2 years after the ratification, which is last year. They are still struggling to report. To us, this is evidence of an approach which shows that there is a limited interest in disability issues. This is more when you consider that there is no real dedicated office dealing with disability in Zimbabwe. Disabilities are under the overstretched, ill-equipped, understaffed Department of Social Services, which is other things to deal with, such as refugees, vulnerable children, you name them. So we are saying, unless as persons with disabilities we take action, we can never be out of this quagmire. But we realize that we cannot do this alone as persons with disabilities. So we note that, and this is a strong message, especially to politicians who may think that, because it's persons with disability, they do. We do have our wives, our husbands, our children, our relatives, and even some who are concerned about disability. So it would be in the best interest of the policymaker to then look at disability as a serious issue, because at the rate the sledgehammer will go, some people may even lose their positions. So we want to then say this program or this hashtag disability sledgehammer, we have a number of programs. The first of the programs will be submitting a petition to government, and we will call upon a lot of people to sign the petition. The petition is basically aimed at calling upon government to respect disability as a right rather than a charity issue. The second thing is that in terms of programming, we are going to court to ask the courts to help us so that the government will stop discriminating against us. A very good example is the Section 3 of the Disabled Persons Act that I have cited. Some people are actually saying, but guys, the legislation is being aligned to the Constitution, so why not talk about aligning it rather than, but we have been told this for the past 3 years. So, trikuti story nani, kutomboshanda nezvatinazvo. If the government is not implementing what is there, what evidence do we have that it will put something better and implement it? So this is what the sledgehammer is doing. And then finally, I think we have noted with great concern that there is no national disability policy in this country. So for the past 36 years, we have been having any policy that you can think of, but there is no national disability policy. As a result, the response that we have been having on disabilities are uncoordinated. And this has made us lose a lot. you will find that even in cases where ministers were appointing persons with disabilities into entities, it was just out of their benevolence. There was nothing that was actually causing them to do that. And currently we have been seeing that even those ministers who were actually sounding progressive, they've actually regressed. Actually, they've taken us back to the pre-independence era, where persons with disabilities were not seen. Yet we know that there are so many people with disabilities who are competent, who are well-informed, who are educated, who could be appointed in some of those parastatals. But we are not seeing any such thing happening. So these are the closed doors that we are saying, as the sledgehammer, we want to hit hard and break into. So in short, I think this is what the disability sledgehammer stands for.
A vast virus database has been updated.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maketa. Let's go to Mr. Mutsingo, and if you have anything to add, we can edit here in terms of what Mr. Maketa has said.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kuchera. I, Dennis Mutsingo, the National Secretary for People with Disabilities in NDCT Party, is in solidarity with the disability sledgehammer. Representing NDCT Party, the NDCT Party would like to see a Zimbabwe where people with disability live with dignity and equality. And it would like to create an environment where people with disability would live to their full potential. So we are really happy in that my fellow brothers have decided to start this movement, which is called the Disability Sledgehammer. And as a party, we are already ahead. We are a step ahead because my party has already set up a department for people with disability. And I am the shadow cabinet commissioner for people with disabilities. And I'm not going to pronounce a lot about our policy today because this is not the purpose of the press conference. But on behalf of my party, I can only say at this point in time, we are in full solidarity with the disability sledgehammer. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks very much. One of the things that we did realize is that political parties, by their very nature, deal with numbers, and we have invited political representatives, civil society representatives, to join in this program. Political parties are also, unfortunately, some of the worst perpetrators of a door closure up to this point. You realize that even in times gone by, there was no recognition of disability within political structures. There could have been a department, but you would find in some of the political parties, those departments would be led by persons without disability or without even comprehension of what disability is. So when we talk about the closure of doors and when we talk about the institutions, we are also even looking at the private sector. And one of the most interesting examples that I always give is that you advertise for a job as a human resources officer, and then you put, I'm not sure if it will be in the same color or different color, clean class drivers for license is required. Now, what is the job of a human resource officer or manager have to do with having a clean class driver's form? Actually, the other question to think about is how clean is clean? What determines clean? But anyway, what is some of the tasks or most of the tasks that a human resource officer or manager is supposed to do have nothing to do with the clean class 4 or class 2 or class 1 driver's licenses. Anyway, you can travel using modes of transport that you don't necessarily have to chauffeur on your own. So these are all door closure mechanisms that we are talking about. And in discussions with all these institutions, you'll find that they pay lip service to the concerns of persons with disabilities. To the extent that when you have discussions with those who represent disability, right? But you can't determine where it. So, and I usually say that this is not a threat to say one day it will become. What we are saying, what is good for a person with a disability is most probably good for the population, because everyone will be able, if it is access, everyone will be able to access. If it is resources or even other structures within the government setup. So at this point,